Hey, this is the Ryan Got the Bread podcast, and we are talking to Tyler and Quincy, real estate investors from Williamsboro, New Jersey, but they live in Scranton, PA, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys. What's going on? How you guys doing?
Thanks for having us.
First, I want to say I super appreciate you guys coming out here. It's been like a mad hassle. I know it's not the most convenient thing to come out here to do a podcast and just talk about real estate, but I just want to say I really appreciate it. I was super excited to get you guys because I don't really know you guys personally. I just see that you bought a commercial property. I see you guys were doing some other real estate investing, and I don't know, it's super dope. So I'm excited to explore what you guys are doing.
Same.
Yeah. So I guess the thing I like to start with is like, I want to work backwards, right? So where are you guys currently in your investing? And then we're going to go back and talk about your first deal and what if there were struggles, how you got into all that. And so where are you guys at now? How many properties do you have? Where are goals going forward?
You want to take this or I can take it?
Okay.
So we have 4 properties right now. Where we are currently is we just purchased a commercial building up in the Scranton area, and what we're doing is we purchased that so that we could have like a rooming house, almost like a group home. So we're investing in group homes. That's pretty much the that's kind of the motto that we wanted. That's the motto that we wanted to get into now, because you could, it's a lot more profitable than traditional single family properties, and you're able to help a lot more people and provide affordable housing.
That's what I've been learning. Like, I'm on this whole thing of getting more units. The single family homes are cool, like, to start with, but I feel like the way to go is to bigger and bigger units because the economics of it, plus there's less risk because you got a whole bunch more units you can rent out. What got you into like the group home aspect of investing?
It's funny that we kind of stumbled upon it by mistake. My mom actually put me onto it. She was I was talking about buying like multi-units at first. I was looking at like fourplexes at the time, and she had she works in the nursing field, so she's around a lot of people who deal with like social workers and stuff like that. So there's a lot of investors around her, and she was talking about group homes. Now, my mom's not a real estate investor, so when she said group homes, I thought she meant like multi-units, like a group within a, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So when she explained it to me, like, no, like, there's people out renting beds, and I was just thinking about it, and then I just started doing my research and just kind of like, caught my attention, because I was thinking, with single family homes, you can only get like, you rent for the month, and you get let's say $1,000 a month, but like with group homes, you can do like $750 a bed, you know what I mean? So like, and if you're doubling up the beds and you have a 4-bedroom property, it's a lot more lucrative than like a single family. So I like that. That's what got me. That's what sparked my attention, because I was like, when you when you have a regular single family home, you're paying the same expenses. You know what I mean? So I figured if you're doubling it or tripling it or whatever, it just makes more sense.
Yeah, you still got one roof, right? But then you got all these other units, so the cost of replacing a roof is the same, but the income is different.
Exactly.
My thing is, on paper, that looks good, right? Mm-hmm. What about like the other issues that could be associated with that? Like, do you need a manager there to like keep track of what's going on, or like how does that work when you're renting out the rooms versus like a single family?
So yeah, you would definitely need a property manager. Typically, we would have someone who is a client, someone who actually lives in the property, and we would just have them become the actual property manager. So we would just do something with them, whether it be lower rent or some type of incentive to make it worth it for them to be managing the property. And it's really hands off. They're just there to kind of make sure that the payments are being made and that people are just following the rules, making sure people are cleaning, making sure the property's being kept, just stuff like that. Now, the difference between, say, like a single family and this is we pay all of the utilities. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to, like, if they're paying $750 a bed, that's all they have to pay for. They don't have to pay any utilities or anything. So there's a little bit more overhead, but it makes more sense because of, how many people are in the property.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do the logistics of who's using what water and all that stuff. So how, like, So tell me the numbers on the deal, I guess. What are you buying the property for? Are you doing a rehab on it? Like, what's the strategy there specifically?
So usually I like to get, this was a commercial. You're talking about the commercial
Yeah,
property
yeah,
we
yeah.
just had.
Mm-hmm.
So that property, I think we only got it for like $110,000.
Really?
Yeah.
How many square feet is it?
10,000.
Oh my goodness. This is in Scranton, right?
Yeah. So that property, we actually got a renovation. There was a renovation mortgage on top, a renovation loan on top of it. So we were able to just group everything in at once.
So are you guys using a like a conventional loan, or are you some kind of commercial type of lending?
Commercial. We tried to get an FHA loan, but it wasn't working out because they have they try to say in order for you to they do mixed use buildings, but the problem was with the square footage being 50-50, like 5,000 on the first floor and 5,000 on the second, it didn't really fit into the FHA guidelines.
Now, the building, what was it before, or was it already set up to rent it out, or?
Yeah, there was a gym on the first floor. There was the 2 units above were already there, but they were just regular standard units.
Okay. And so, are you keeping the gym downstairs?
So, no. Originally, we were trying to renovate the floors up on the second floor for the rooming house because there were about 8 bedrooms. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to put 2 people in per bedroom, but we ran into some issues with the zoning. We just had a zoning hearing about a week ago, and they were basically saying that we can't have it on the second floor and that it can only be in 1 unit. So what we're going to do with that first floor is we're going to just convert the first floor into the actual rooming house, because there's a lot that went into it as far as code, electrical wires and stuff being up to code. When you get a special use permit and you have to get an occupancy permit, they come in and do inspections, and the property that we have, it's so old that, a lot of the wires are out of date and not up to code, plumbing and stuff like that. So we figured if we're going to put any money into this building, it would make sense for it to be on the first floor, since it's 5,000 square feet down there instead of 2,500 in the 1 unit. Now,
did you guys know that going into it, or how much due diligence did you guys do until, did you know that you were going to have an issue with zoning where you couldn't do certain things, or were you it's a good deal, we'll make it work? What's your investment strategy in general? I think that's an interesting thing. Some people go by gut, some people do super analytics to try to figure it out. What's because Tyler, I see you got a notebook here with notes and all that stuff, so you look like the analytical one, and I don't know about Quincy, so how's that work?
So yeah, we did a lot of due diligence. I do a lot of due diligence before I get any of my properties, and with this one I went through their zoning ordinance, and their zoning ordinance did permit the use of that space to be a rooming and boarding house. So I guess what it came down to was the interpretation of the ordinance, mm-hmm. because what it said was that you can have up to 2 people per room per residence. So my initial interpretation was, well, listen, if there's 2 units upstairs, using Unit A and Unit B, that's a residence, and Unit B is a residence. So, I figured that I could have 8 people in 2 residences, but they considered the entire building 1 residence. Mm-hmm. So I did the interpretation. I mean, I did the due diligence, but it just, like I said, it just came down to how they interpreted the zoning ordinance.
So when you had to go to the zoning hearing, what did you have to do? How long did that take? Did you need to hire somebody to do the paperwork for you? You did it yourself?
Yeah, I had my attorneys do it. So I initially filed the application. You have to put in, what we were asking for was a special use permit. So I put in the application for the special use permit, and it was denied because in order for you to get a special use permit, the zoning officer can't grant you that special use permit. It has to go through the hearing board. So I already have attorneys, so I just basically passed it off to my attorneys and said, listen, this is what I'm trying to do. Let's pretty much go from here. And that process took about 5 weeks before we actually had an actual hearing. They
That's fast.
Yeah, they had the well, it was a town's not too big, so they didn't have too many other hearings. So we were able to get it faster. So that's how pretty much that was.
What's the attorney cost on that? Do you know?
That our attorney charged us about $1,500 to represent us there, and we have to actually go back in about a few weeks, and that would likely be another $1,500. But there was also a $600 fee for the actual zoning hearing, because the township has to bring their solicitors out and stuff like that. So we have to pay.
They charge you to pay for their attorneys too, huh?
Exactly. Yeah.
These towns. I've been afraid to deal with any of that stuff. Like, I don't even like dealing with permits. Like, and that's tough. But trying to do something with zoning, I've been staying away from it. So that's interesting. I learned a little bit, because the zoning hearing sounds terrible to me.
It was a little, because see, what we're asking is we're wanting to put a rooming house in their city, and we would like to, have people who maybe can't afford housing, or people who have mental disabilities or substance abuse problems, and they didn't want that. And
Yeah.
I think there had to be
protesters or some people up there like,
I mean, like he was saying, it's a very small town, it's very tight knit. So a lot of the people had an issue with that. There were lots of rumors. Quincy heard that people were saying things like, they're putting a drug rehab here and all that stuff, and like a lot of he said, she said. So, there was all these like middle-aged women there saying, we don't want, like, how can you basically promise us that there's not going to be any drug rehab here, and you're not just going to turn it into that. Like, they completely turned it into something it wasn't.
Did you like try to combat the messaging? Like, did you do a media campaign?
I wasn't there, but
I told them, I said, listen, we're going to do, screenings. We're going to make sure that there's no murderers, no pedophiles in the city. We're just here to provide affordable housing, because there's not, there's a problem right now with affordable housing, and there's so many people that are in the shelters because they're losing their homes. So, that was what my attorney had argued, and that's what I told him. I said, there's not many, other than me sitting right here telling you that, this is going to be a rooming house. There's not really any more assurance that I can give you. I figured the reason why you guys are all here today is because I'm doing this the right way. I didn't just open up a rehab.
Yeah, most people just do it like, I know people in Philly, they just, just rent out the rooms, and it's kind of like a unofficial halfway house, and they make money. But I'm like, eventually, Philly, it's the wild, wild west. Yeah. Like, they don't do, now if you're in Jersey, they'll come get you, but it's different. How about the financing side? Like, you're using a hard money lender? Like, what's that look like?
I tried to get a hard money loan. We were trying to get this property for like almost a year, but what I didn't know was when you start dealing with commercial, every lender is different. And what they have is they have their own sets of guidelines. Like, when they heard that the property was only like 110, they were like, "No, we have to, on a commercial property, we don't lend anything under $250,000." Then there were those who were saying, "Well, the area has to be a certain way, or you have to bring 45% down on the as a down payment." So it was hard getting. I think we probably went through like 50 lenders trying to get it. Yeah.
Really? So you really wanted the property?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't find a 10,000 square foot building.
Yeah, for that much.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, So you do have to do rehabs, because you basically have to bring it all the way back up to code. Mm-hmm. So you got to redo all the electrical. You got to do plumbing, all that stuff.
Well, no. They would have wanted that if we were doing a special use permit, because if we're bringing, I guess their fear was that if you're having a bunch of people up in one area, they want to make sure that electrical and everything is up to code, because if, they were also talking like possibly putting in like a sprinkler system in there, because, if things aren't right, electrical or plumbing or whatever, it could be an issue, and a lot of people can die that way. So with us just doing the regular renovations to the property, they're not really requiring us to actually, open up the walls and stuff like that.
Okay. So if you were talking to somebody, they didn't know how to get started, but they wanted to get involved in doing a boarding home, what would your advice be to them? Like, how do they actually get started? Like, what's the first thing they should do?
Get an attorney. First of all, get an
How
attorney.
do you do that? I mean, because I'm actually just now like trying to get an attorney to do some real estate syndications and some like bigger deals, but I haven't had any access to an attorney. I never had to use an attorney before. How do you find a good attorney that's going to be able to do that?
So what I do is I go to places like meetup.com. And with Meetup, you have you just put your zip code in, and you'll have access to all of the local realtors in your area. So a lot of the times they have like meetings and stuff. Like I know there's a big one in Cherry Hill. I know there's a big RIA group in Philadelphia. And when I go there, you know, that's where you're gonna find all of your flippers, all of your hard money lenders, all of your contractors. All of them go to those meetings, and you can pretty much network with all of them. Like for me, I would go to the people who do wholesaling, and I say, hey, who do you guys use as an attorney? You know, is he any good? And I'll just get a bunch of attorneys and get a bunch of referrals, and then just do my own due diligence, look at their reviews and stuff like that. And then, you know, I'll go from there, because even wholesaling isn't something that every attorney knows. Like I thought that every attorney knows how to do wholesaling. It's not the case.
True. Why real estate? Why did you guys get started?
Yes, I'll take that one. We can't really talk about real estate without bringing up our shoe business that we had. I don't know. I don't think we've told you or you know, but this was 4 years ago, about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We started our own online business, customizing shoes. So that kind of really made us realize, you know, we can literally make our own money. There was a time where we just didn't want to go to work anymore, you know, because we realized how, I wouldn't say easy it was, but
you're like, I could really make money.
Yeah, like how realistic it is. Because a lot of people, you know, they don't think, you know, they think that, you know, they can do it, but that can never be me. But, you know, we put ourselves in the position, and we were actually able to just literally make our own money out of basically nothing.
You know, it's funny. We actually stumbled across real estate on accident. I mean, I'm sorry, we stumbled on doing shoes by accident. It was never something that I was like, you know, I want to be a shoe designer. Like that wasn't kind of how it went. Like Tyler had ordered a custom pair of shoes online, and after a few, you know, when she got them, they weren't really done properly, and you know, she sent them back, and then they came back and they still weren't done right. And after a few times, she was like, you know, I'm just gonna learn to do this myself. So she did it, and I was like, yo, like if we were selling on Etsy at the time, I'm like, yo, if all of these Etsy sellers are terrible at making it, and you just made it, and it looks better than the ones who've been in business, why don't we just do this on our own? And that's what she did. And at first, it wasn't something that like it wasn't. I didn't think that it was gonna blow up the way that it did. Like it was a matter of literally her teaching me, and then us putting up. We only had like two designs on our.
We had our own shops too. So.
Oh yeah, she was my competition.
We had two different stores.
Yeah, I had my own, and she had her own. And at first, it was like she was on Etsy and I was on eBay, because she was just like, you know, like don't be my competition. You know what I mean? But she started to blow up on Etsy, and I'm like, yo, like, you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna be the only one eating. You know what I mean? And I'm not getting as many. I'm not getting as many customers. I didn't get as much traffic on eBay. But once we did it and we started making money, it was just like, it just kind of seemed like a switch kind of went off, or a light went off in our head, because it was like, yo, like I'm making, like we would make like $100 net like per shoe. And I was thinking at the time, she was working at Starbucks, and I was delivering pizza. And I'm like, bro, like I'd have to be working like 10 hours to get $100. And it only took me like an hour to make a shoe. So like once we started like picking up and making a bunch of money, I was just like, yo, like why are we working? Like I can make, like if I got 10 shoes, like I'm straight for the week. I don't have to go out. Like we were calling out of work and stuff like that. And I was just like calling people like, yo, you know, come take my shift. Like I don't need it. Then we were going on vacations and stuff like that. And then I guess what made us get into real estate was Tyler's grandmother. She was just really concerned because, we dropped out of school. We dropped out of college too. So like, cause we were just like, bro, listen, at the time in our peak, it was actually like 6 years ago. It was 2014. So in our peak, we were pulling in anywhere from like $50,000 to $115,000 in revenue. So like going to school, like we were
what's the point, huh?
We were making more money than our professors. And I just, I don't know. It just kind of bothered me. Like, how are you going to sit there and tell us that we got to come here or we're going to fail or whatever stuff, and we're making more money than the professors?
And we also, it was really taking a leap, though, too. Like, leaving our jobs, leaving school. Of course, we had our parents, like, what are you guys doing? Why are you not going to school? What
was that conversation like?
It was mainly Quincy. It was a lot of his mom. Realistically, she was just nervous. She's just like, you're dropping out of school. Like, it's just like, what are you doing?
Here's the thing: any mother in America will have a genuine concern if they know that they have a child that can excel in school and get good grades and get a good job. And when you have all of that set up, because we were both attending Rutgers, so like when you're attending a nice university like that, I think what she wanted was for me to just finish and become an attorney and stuff like that. But it didn't make her comfortable that I would shy away from something as traditional as college and then jump into something as unfamiliar as real estate, because we didn't have any, we didn't own any real estate at the time. We were just making shoes. And when Tyler's grandmother had said, listen, you guys are going on vacation and you guys, you quit your jobs, you're not going to college, like, what happens if nobody buys your shoes? Like,
yeah, she said it's not going to last forever, and it didn't. Like, things like that go out of style. So we really had to think, okay, what's next?
So the business did like start declining?
No,
not while we were in it.
What is a custom shoe? I'm not that stylish. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Very simply put, we would go to Foot Locker, Champs, or whatever. We would buy a Roach run for like $60. We would take some fabric, some scissors, cut it out, slap it on a shoe, add $100 to the price, and sell it.
And people would buy it. Timberlands too.
And she was dyeing Timberlands. Like, she'd take like butters and just dye them red, blue, or whatever.
That's cool, man. I mean, if it works, it works.
It just
people buy. Industries are funny like that.
But it was a genuine concern. It was always in the back of our head. Like, I'm thinking, like, people aren't going to want to do these Rochers forever. So I'm like, what can we do? And then, we were already going on vacations, and when we were going on vacations, we were also staying in Airbnbs. And we went to Maryland, and we stayed for like 2 days. And the price was like $2,000 for 2 days, which was $1,000 a night. But we didn't care because we were there with like 10 people. So we just, divided it all up. Mm-hmm. But like, I just remember thinking to Tyler, like, yo, like, these people just made 2 G's in 2 days. And I'm like, you know how many shoes we would have to make to get $2,000? So
and they didn't even have to do anything.
Exactly. That's the other thing. For as much money as we made with shoes, it didn't even feel like it was worth it. Like, felt like we were in a sweatshop. Like, we're talking like 19-hour days, especially Christmas.
Oh my God, that was terrible.
And you got people reaching out to us, where's my shoes? And we have like 60 orders and stuff like that. And when you're your own boss, like, you set your own hours, so it's like, when these orders and stuff are due, like, you're gonna just be up 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning doing a bunch of shoes. I got a bunch of stuff like on my Instagram now, just so you could see like how it was, like how many shoes we had to do and get out in a certain amount of time. Especially, like I said, Christmas time. Everybody wants their stuff during Christmas or before Christmas.
True. So that's when it gets busy. So, all right, when did you guys meet?
Where did we meet?
Yeah, when? And tell me that story. In college?
We were in high school. It was.
You guys are high school sweethearts?
Yeah, we went to two different schools. I kind of met him at a party, and he reached out to me on Facebook. So.
I was low key stalking her since 2008. I mean, if we're being honest, it was like
MySpace
2000.
days.
Yeah, MySpace days. Like,
MySpace.
I was in my own relationship at the time, but then I saw her. I think I saw her like in person, like at the skating rink. And I was just thinking, like, yo, I'm trying to, I'm trying to see who she is. But she was in a relationship at the time. But, when my relationship ended, I'm like, let me see what's going on with her. So, like, I went on MySpace, and, like, she had put on MySpace that she's not on MySpace anymore, to come follow her on Facebook or come friend her on Facebook. So I was like, bet. And that's what I did. I reached out to her, and, she didn't respond the first few times, but I was diligent. You know what I mean?
Oh, so you got to be persistent.
Yeah, very persistent.
You talking to yourself in the inbox? What's up with that? Now they
There's
get a screenshot doing that.
There's a fine line between persistent and being a creep. I wasn't a creep though, but I was very, very persistent, and it worked. I mean, I married her.
Tyler, why you make him talk to himself in the inbox?
I don't know.
What did he eventually say that got like?
I think
you were like,
I think
up?
what happened was he was in my inbox, but I kind of like brushed it off because I didn't know who he was. I didn't know him in person. I was just like, I'm more of like, if I see you in person, we make the connection. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's like a needle in the haystack type of thing if someone inboxes you. So I was just like, but then we went to a party and he hit me up on Facebook after the party. And he was like, I think I saw you. And I remembered who he was. So, like, I think I kind of made that mental connection, like, oh, I saw you in person. Maybe this, I don't know. But I reached back out and, from there it was kind of history.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. Like, it seems like everything happened for a reason because this was a Willenboro party. And this was her first time ever going to a Willenboro party. Like, I've lived in Willenboro my whole life. So, like, when she said she lived in Willenboro, I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I know every girl, every guy, everybody in Willenboro. So, like, you're not. Like, who do you know? Like, if you know.
What year you graduate?
12.
12. Okay.
I'm 11.
11, 12. Okay.
So, when she said that she was from Willenboro, I'm like, how?
Because I didn't go to any Willenboro schools.
So then it's funny because I went to a party that I wasn't going to go to, but I ended up going. And then this was the first time that she's ever been there. And then I saw her there. And I mean, all I was thinking was, I know she knows that this is me. And she's probably thinking, oh, this creep who I just ignored for the last 3 times. Now here he is. He's probably stalking me. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much where we met. And I hit her up again. You know what I mean? For the 4th time. Like, hey, all I said was, hey. I think I saw you. I know I saw her. I said, I think I saw you. I'm like, yo, if she ignores this one, then it's done. It wasn't meant to be. And she responded, and, we went from there.
That's a nice story. I was just asking because I need tips out here. I'm doing bad. Oh, man, that's a whole story for another day. But so I guess it's pretty cool. Like, you guys both basically dropped out of school. Quincy, you were going to law school?
Rutgers. Well, I wasn't in law school.
But you were on that path, pre-law?
Yeah.
Criminal justice.
Justice.
How many years were you in when you dropped out?
6 years.
Oh.
But here's the thing though. I was only going to school just to collect, because my dad was in the military. So I was getting, yeah, exactly. Chapter 35. So I was getting paid like $1,000 a month. So I was taking cinema, cooking, anything that I could barely be paint. We even took painting.
Oh my God.
So like I was in school a lot. You know
Were you not interested in so in high school, did you get good grades?
Hell no.
Oh,
My grade,
okay.
I think I graduated high school with a 1.7
Dang,
GPA.
So not messing with school.
No.
Tyler, how about you?
I was okay. I was strictly okay. I wasn't terrible. I wasn't the best. I was just okay.
And so, wait a minute. You were in school for 6 years, and you went to Rutgers too.
I actually, I started out at BCC. I actually got an associate's degree in business management there. So I went to school for 2 years, and I graduated. Then after that, I was going to Rutgers for my 4-year degree, and that's when I dropped out.
And I just think it's fascinating that both of you guys were like, screw this, we're going to do our own business.
Yeah.
It's funny. I tell this story to my friends all the time. Like, it wasn't until I remember I was in a class and we had just Tyler and I were doing our shoe businesses, and I was getting like notifications that like I had a whole bunch of orders, and our teacher was talking about like Navajo Indians. And I just remember sitting in the class like, I'm trying to make money and be rich, and we're talking about Navajo freaking Indians. Like, that's not helping me make any money. It's not getting me rich. It's not doing anything. And I'm paying for this class, and this is what we're talking about. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I just kind of felt like my spirit was just rejecting school. Because, you see, when I wanted to play football, that was the main reason why I was in college. I wanted to play football. So when I wanted to play football, I was hitting the dean's list. Like, I graduated high school with a 1.7 GPA, but when I wanted to play football, the first 3 years of college, all dean's lists. When I started investing in real estate, when I started investing in my shoe business and then it turned into real estate, Tyler and I couldn't even stay in our classrooms. We weren't doing any of the work. We were leaving early. It just we couldn't sit still because it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, it's like holding you back.
Yeah, it didn't align with what we wanted to do at all. We were literally just there to be making the money.
I had a similar thing because I was in the military and I had the GI Bill. So naturally I was going to college because they were paying me, you know, to go. I went to Temple. But, like, I don't know. I had nights where I would be, like, depressed that school's, like, holding me back. Like, it's a waste of time. Like, I could be doing so much other stuff. That's when I got my real estate license because I was like, I got to do something. You know, actually, it's funny. I was so desperate to, like, start working or do something after being in the military, which I'm used to working, right? And now I'm just going to college, which was crazy. Now I'm in a room with kids, and I'm like, y'all don't even know nothing about life. I was just in Iraq like a year ago, and y'all talking about your mom don't pay your boarding or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is the worst. So I had a similar experience with that. So the first thing I did was, because I saved money all the time, and so I was like, I want to have a business. Somehow I ended up buying a tanning salon. And I was like, it's easy business, right? Because you only need one employee, sit at the desk, people come, they tan, they leave. It's not like complicated. Young at the time, I don't know how to run a business, so I was like, it's a cool idea. So bought the tanning salon, and it was killing. Like, it's funny. It's like in a Philly row home that I bought it, so it wasn't really designed very well for heating and cooling. It would get like insanely hot in there because there were people coming in and out, and it was packed the whole time, and we were making a lot of money. And it was working good, but then it's kind of seasonal, and tanning got less popular. So I have ended up selling it, but it was a really good experience that I had. So I just really relate to, you know, sitting in school being like, this is holding me back. This is ridiculous. It's garbage. But so, and you guys were talking about when you were thinking about dropping out that, you know, you faced mad resistance from pretty much everybody. They're like, what are you going to do? Which, same thing. Why do you think, like, when you go to do something outside the box, there's so much resistance from, like, it's like the whole universe is like, don't do that. You know, get a job, be safe, get your degree, whatever. Why do you think that is such a thing? Yes, and Kyle over here is producing. He's behind the camera. He's talking about in the Black community specifically.
Yes.
I feel like there's a big resistance for that. And even in real estate, when I'm like showing people houses, like they'll be all about it. And then their mom or like somebody will be like, don't buy a house, the water heater might break.
Yes.
And they'll be like, you know, totally turned off by it just because, you know, the people around them are telling them that. Why do you think that is such a prevalent thing? I think in all of society, but I think specifically for Black people and how we view money, why do you think that's such an issue?
I mean, I would say a lot of it comes from, I would say, a mixture of fear and love. Like, they love you so much, and it comes from a good place, but they're just scared, you know. And they a lot of times our parents didn't go to college, so they see you're in college. It's like, you know, why are you not going to college? Like, this is a thing to do. And they also they probably don't believe in it, you know. They don't know anyone who was extremely successful in real estate. You know, a lot of people have bad stories about real estate because, you know, they just went about it wrong. So that's the only time that they've seen people in real estate, and, you know, that keeps replaying in their mind. And they're just worried that, you know, you're going to do the same thing and fall victim.
That is a big reason I'm even doing this, is because I don't have an attorney. I don't have a cousin who's an attorney. I don't know anyone in that business. Before I did real estate, I didn't know anyone that did that, right? And so, like, other people have, like, a cousin who does real estate or a plumber or something, and you can learn about these different things, and it becomes more real, right? Like, if you know Jim down the street, you know, invests in real estate, or he's an attorney, you can talk to him. You can say, hey, Jim, what's it like being an attorney or whatever, or being a doctor? I don't know none of these people. So it's like these things are ethereal. Like, it's not a real attainable thing for a lot of people. And I think that's a big issue, like what you're talking about. And that's why I'm doing the podcast, because maybe hopefully people could see you guys, me. It's actually a thing that you guys can do. You don't have to do what everyone's saying to do.
I think that fear and ignorance, a combination of fear and ignorance, I think that's the biggest issue, especially in our community, because like I speak to people, there are people in my inbox weekly who want to invest in real estate, and I get the same type of people. It's I want to get invested in real estate, but I don't know where to start. And when I hear people like I love hearing skeptics and people who are like pessimists, because I'm genuinely I'm concerned, but I'm intrigued by them. Like I had a guy who said, real estate is a scam. And I'm like, where are you living at? Oh, I'm renting from such and such. And I'm like, ask your landlord if real estate is a scam. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they don't know. And then he said, oh, well, I owned an apartment property and nobody wanted to pay rent. And then I ended up losing the property. And that seems to be a common issue with a lot of failing real estate investors. And I asked him, I said, how did you choose the area that you wanted to invest in? I asked him, I said, did you just pick a random spot? This guy was investing in Camden. He said, I invested in Camden because it was really cheap.
Oh, look, people do that in my inbox, and they always start off looking at the cheapest thing possible. I'm like, you can make money doing the cheap stuff, but you need to be built to handle that type of market. Right? Like there's people that do Camden real estate and do good, but you need to be the right person for it.
And it has to make sense.
Yep.
Because I said, and how did you screen your tenants? Oh, I just put a Craigslist listing. So you didn't run their background check. You didn't see if they got previously evicted. They don't do their due diligence, and then they wonder why they fail.
Yep.
And that seems to be the problem. And when I put it to them, I say, listen, like real estate didn't fail you failed real estate. You know what I mean? Like you didn't go out and take the time and do your due diligence, and that's why it didn't work out for you. So like I'll give you an example. So our property in the Poconos, we did so much research before we bought the property in the Poconos, because what a lot of people don't realize is the Poconos isn't just like a small little place. The Poconos is almost like a county. It's a bunch of different cities within an area. So when we bought the property in the Poconos, I looked at where are all the amenities, where are the ski resorts, where are the casinos, where are the water parks, where are the ATVs, where are the everything. And then I said, okay, they're all right here. And I said, you know what, we're going to get a property right in the middle of everything. And that's exactly what we did. And when we went live on Airbnb, we were booked up in 24 hours, our first 24 hours. And I had a lady who reached out to me. She reached out to me about 3 or 4 years ago. And she wanted to invest in the Poconos too. And I told her, she wanted a consultation. I told her it was going to be about $500. I said, we could sit down, we can talk about everything. I'll tell you where to invest, where not to invest, whatever. She didn't respond to me. She reaches out to me recently. She bought a property in Bushkill, which is like, for people who don't know, like what the Poconos is, Bushkill is kind of like
the sticks.
Yeah, it is the Poconos. But it's like the boonies. Like it's the only thing out in Bushkill is like Bushkill Falls. And there might be like one ski resort or whatever. But she's not making any money. And she bought a property in a neighborhood where they don't allow Airbnb. So now she's left renting it out as a landlord, only making a couple $100 a month. And it's like, you see, this is why I charge for consultations, because I would have told you, I'm familiar with that area, and I could have told her, listen, just check the HOA, check their guidelines, call them, call this person, call a real estate agent, and ask them if this is something you can do. Because now that you went and bought this property, you've lost thousands and thousands of dollars just by not knowing.
You got to be on. So what do you think about this dynamic? And then I want to talk about the Airbnb thing. The dynamic of research versus doing, right? Because feel like there's two different kinds of people where, or at least online, people are reading 10,000 books, but they don't do anything. And then there's people who just jump into stuff like the lady you're talking about and doesn't know anything. Like, so what is that balance? What's up with that?
I had friends who were like that. They have analysis paralysis. They'll analyze the hell out of a deal, but they won't actually have the boldness to actually go out and do it. I've never had anyone like this one lady who just went out and boldly bought a property. The thing is, there's more people who will analyze a property and not make a move than there are people who will go out and actually buy a property. But I don't know. I think that
how do they break through? Do you have any? Because you consult people.
Mm-hmm.
So out of how many people you consult, how many people do you think actually pull the trigger?
I haven't had anyone yet, and I've probably spoken to at least 50 by now, and
really?
they don't. It's just like, here's something that I noticed about people. You ever like run track and like you see those things where like right before they take off, they like put their feet up on the, what are they, like blocks or something like that? I always wanted to consider myself like the blocks. Like I just want to be someone that can just set you up for you to just take off in this real estate game. But I started realizing that people are fascinated with just the feeling of getting on the blocks, not actually running, just feeling like they're about to do something. They're fascinated with it, and they call me. They want to do it. They're so excited. They're hype about it, and then it's like they just get up off the blocks. Like, okay, like that was fine.
Yeah,
like
they get high off the dream.
Like I really actually have to do the work.
I feel the same way because a lot of people contact. See, I don't charge people. I'll sit down and talk to them. Maybe I should charge. I don't know. But see, I'll feel bad if they don't execute. I'll be like, why'd you pay me $500? Y'all didn't do nothing. But that's on them, I guess.
I didn't start off charging people. I used to be like my inbox. I used to just sit back and respond to everybody, and I would just spend so much time just responding. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do.
Doing that now.
And then people don't do it, and now it's like my time has been wasted. And when you start to have more respect for your time, you'll start charging people because you're going to start realizing that, if someone reaches out to me, there's like a 99% chance that they're full of it. So it's like, am I going to sit here and indulge in this person and talk to them if they're not going to do anything? Like, because my philosophy is this: if you're not going to pay for your education, then real estate's really not for you anyway, because you're going to be as successful as the people you hang around, and you have to pay for mentorship. You have to pay for people who've done this before. So if you're not going to pay $500 to go to get started off in the right direction, then you're not going to be successful in real estate anyway.
And it's a good way to filter out the people who are not as serious, because there are so many people who have reached out, I want to know how to do this. And, Quincy, he'll say, this is my price, hit me up when you're ready, and he'll never hear back from them again.
Then they're not serious.
I have $50 phone calls. They don't even want to do the $50 phone calls. And you get two types of people. You get the person who, when you give them the price, you have the person that doesn't respond. They'll read it and not respond. And then you'll have these people. These are my favorite people. The ones who be like, oh, word, bet. And then they don't respond, or then they don't book you. Like, it's those two types of people. It's ridiculous.
Our video production business has that all the time, because they'll ask like a quote, which is hard to do for video, but we'll give them like a scale, and then they either disappear or they're like, oh, wow, okay, thanks. So,
right.
That's always fun. So how's your guys' dynamic with this decision making as far as what properties you're buying and stuff? Like, how do you guys get along? Do you fight about it? Like, how's that operate?
Well, no, we've never really fought over a property. I mean, we do like a pros and cons breakdown of every property, but usually, there's a lot of communication that goes into the properties that we, want to buy. I don't think there's ever been like an issue with it. We have to make sure it makes sense financially. And then, we look at the numbers, what is it going to cost us, and then the potential, how much is it going to make us. But usually, like with some properties, one thing that we started doing recently was, are you familiar with like subject to investing?
Not too much.
So this is actually like a huge market for people who are like losing their homes. So we did this with the second property that we have, and this is out in Pittston, Pennsylvania. It's on the outskirts. There was a lady who was losing her house. She was facing foreclosure. Her husband had passed away. Her 401k plan was completely, finished, like dry. And she was foreclosing on her home. So I told her, I said, hey, listen, I'll stop your foreclosure and take over your monthly payments in exchange for your deed. And then I'll also give you a place to stay. So she was only behind maybe $5,000. So I paid $5,000 to her. And then I gave her $3,000 to find somewhere else to go. And I just took over the payments. Her monthly payments were only $500 a month.
Oh my goodness!
And she had tremendous equity in the home because she got the property back in like 2001. So
how did you find that?
So on Zillow, you have Zillow. A lot of the
don't say that word,
Zillow. They have a pre-foreclosure category.
You use those?
Yeah, that's how I got this one.
Oh man! After people watch this, I'm gonna get hit up by those pre-foreclosure people because that's what they like. When people are looking at houses, they send me all the pre-foreclosures. I'm like, yo, it's not for sale. You got to go knock on the door. Because I'm a real estate agent, so, that happens all the time. I'm like, no, it's not for sale. It's a whole big pet peeve.
And that's the thing, though. That's another thing
But you're willing to do the work if you're looking at those.
There's so much money in it, though, because there are people who – I'll give you an example. That house that I'm speaking of, this lady had wholesalers and real estate agents reaching out to her, giving her mail and everything. I knocked on the door. No, I'm sorry. I did direct mail, and I wrote her name. All I did was handwritten her name, and I taped it to her door. And it was just a little mailer that just basically said that I wanted to buy her house. Can she give me a call? And then she gave me a call, and I said, listen, I'm going to send someone out there and assess your property. And then I went over there. I sat down. I spoke to her, and I was just like, listen, there's not enough equity, which there was. I said, there's not enough equity in the deal, so we're not going to be able to buy the house. Because at the time, I didn't have the resources to buy her house outright. So I said, we're not going to be able to buy your property, but you may qualify for a program. We call it our LAPS program, our loan assignment program, where the company would just take over your property for the life of the loan. Is that something that you're interested in? And she said yes. And she told me that she had a lot of people, wholesalers, lowballing her and not giving her what she owed on the property. So, for me to have that conversation with her and actually go there and speak to her, I was able to close the deal. And, I was, like I said, we were in there talking. She wanted to talk about her dog, her family, and stuff like that. And then she deeded the property over to me. All I did was paint and carpet, and her mortgage was only like $500. That property right now is being rented for $1,250.
Hey, you can't beat that. I mean, that's a really good story but you got to, go out there and look at those pre-foreclosures and talk to those people. So if you're willing to do it, that's good. That's good stuff because I haven't heard anyone doing that. So that's good.
There's been real estate, because I've been to a bunch of different seminars, and I speak to real estate investors who've been doing this for years. And they're all like, I've never heard of this. They talk about due on sale clauses and stuff like that, but none of that really affects us because we don't really own any property in our personal names. Amazing. So when I say she deeded the property to us, what she did was she deeded the property into a land trust that we owned. So we own properties in LLCs and land trusts, mainly land trusts.
This because you got the attorney doing all that. See, people get caught up in those details, and I feel like the vibe I'm getting is you just figure it out. And, of course, use the attorney, but figure out how to make the deal work, which a lot of people are asking all these questions like, send it to the attorney. You'll figure out whatever you got to do with the paperwork to make that.
Here's the thing. How can I put it? That's kind of how we do business. Like in school, they would consider this cheating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But with me, I could call my attorney up. Listen, this is what I want to do. Make it legal. Yes. Get it back to me. Make it legal.
That's the crazy thing about this world because we're taught that everything's in this box, but the box is much bigger. It's not really a box at all. You just make stuff work. All right, so tell me about this Airbnb deal because that's hot right now. Everybody's talking about doing Airbnb investments. Even me, I'm a little worried about because I feel like, well, first of all, there's a lot of regulations coming out against Airbnbs, which is nuts. But also the management side, how do you deal with all that? But start from the beginning. So what you pay for the property, how'd you find it, all that. It's a Poconos one, right?
110 seems to be the favorite number. This one
really?
Was 110.
Here's the thing. You're out there where it's cheaper and probably less saturated, huh?
Well, yes and no. The problem is the Pocono properties are now going up. Like our property appraises well over what we bought it for. But the reason why it was so cheap was because a lot of people don't want to live in the Poconos. The Poconos isn't ideal for living. Yeah. So in our neighborhood, about 80% of homes are Airbnb. And our homeowners association, they're with it. Like they told us, listen, if you're gonna do Airbnb, we want $25 per booking, and we want $250 up front just to allow you to do this in the house. So we were able to get the property cheap, and then we renovated. Now here's the thing: we got this property with an FHA loan, so we didn't have to put. We only put down.
Don't snitch on yourself.
Well, here's the thing, though. We followed the guidelines. The guidelines said we had to stay in the property for about a year. It said majority of 1 year, but we stayed in it for a full year.
Okay, so you guys actually moved in.
Mm-hmm.
The property
we were living
for
there.
a year.
Yeah, we were living in there, and we were
Was
renovating.
that like out of your lifestyle? Like, was that hard to do?
It was.
Did you want to move there?
I knew that it was worth it. So I didn't have a problem with actually moving there. It was definitely something different because we literally moved from Willingboro to the Poconos. We have no family out there.
That was the first time you moved out there.
Yeah. I'm sorry. No, it wasn't from Willingboro. It was from, where were we at? Robbinsville?
We were in
Jersey.
We were in Jersey.
Yeah, it was Jersey. So we moved from Jersey to the Poconos.
In order to do this deal.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was perfect because we were making shoes, so we could have lived in Kenya. I mean, because we could move without having to actually be tied to an area due to like a job.
Okay, so you guys
really
are still
worked out.
doing the shoes at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We stopped doing the shoes early 2019.
Oh, so like recently. So
Yeah.
you've been.
So
doing good with
once
that.
you start making money a certain way and you start to become accustomed to it, like I said, you're gonna just naturally reject anything else that's not as convenient. Like before, it was I had to make $100 in 10 hours. Then it went to okay, I can make $100 in 1 hour, and then with Airbnb, you're making $500 in 1 night.
0 hours.
No, I was doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, as far as like management and everything goes, we originally started by we were doing the cleaning. We were managing it ourselves. Like we lived in there, we renovated everything, we put it on Airbnb, and then every time we got a booking, we would just up and leave and go into a hotel. But
Dang.
as we started getting more popular, we were spending like thousands of dollars a month on a hotel. And I was like, listen, we got to get like a studio apartment or something like that. So that's what we ended up doing. But we still maintained the cleanings because like an average cleaning in the Poconos is about $150. So we figured, you know what, listen, we got 4 bookings in 1 week. Like I'd rather save the $600, you know what I mean, and do it ourselves. But then it got to a point where like it was way too much because like I said, you have to do like, we had 9 beds, so you have to do the fitted sheets, the regular sheets, the comforters, the pillowcases, you have to wash all of them. Then you got to go back, dry them all, put them all back on the bed, redo fill up the toilet papers, it took us like 5 hours to do that. And then when we started having back-to-back bookings, like someone checks out at 11 and someone wanted to check in at 3.
You guys physically had to go.
Yes, we were doing it.
Sometimes it was just me because Quincy was busy doing something else.
So you got stuck
it was
with
crazy. Yeah.
And then people are nasty. Like there was like we found condoms under the bed. Like we had like white sheets, but you could still tell that people
Kids' poopy underwear.
Bro, someone left crappy underwear in our house. When I saw that, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't like. The hell with it. $150, they could just have it.
Seriously.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm not picking up crappy underwears, I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? So we ended up finding a housekeeper. Now, the way we found our housekeeper, we did a lot of research in our area, and we already knew who the top Airbnbs were in our town. And we had this Indian guy, I just call him Mr. Patel. He lived about like seven houses down from us, and he has a huge property. He owns about 10 in the Poconos. I would go on his Airbnb and I would just, read all his comments, and he just kept getting like stellar reviews from for housekeeping. So what I did was we were just like walking our dogs around 11:30, typical house, typical checkout time is about 11. So like we were just walking our dogs around that area. And then I finally caught one of his housekeepers coming out, and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm looking to open up an Airbnb down the street. Do you guys, and I got their cards, and then we just pretty much hired them.
Man, you are super savvy with the tricks. You got all the hacks. Because most people are, even me, I'm not doing, going over there, I'm going to just ask them, and if they don't tell me, I'll figure it out. But that's how you get ahead.
Right.
That's
they already had their reviews. So I figured if Mr. Patel's hiring them, I'll fucking hire them.
Yeah, and if it's working, if it ain't fixed, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Dang. All right. So you bought the property 110. You fixed it up a little bit. You lived in it for a year. You were Airbnb in it while you lived there, so you got to move out. Then you got to clean it. And so after all that, then what you end up doing?
We ended up, we put a fire pit. We put a swing set fire pit in our house. I mean, not in our house, in our backyard. And when we put that on Instagram and Facebook, we went viral. Over 14 million views.
Really?
Hundreds of thousands, like, yes. And then our Airbnb just took off. Everybody was booking to the point where we had months and months of bookings.
Wow.
I mean, so that's what we were doing, you know, with the Airbnb. And then we basically ended up, those housekeepers, we pretty much told them, listen, we'll pay you X amount of dollars more to just manage it, because we ended up leaving and going towards Scranton. And then, you know, they already live up there. So I was just like, listen, you know, they didn't have much experience in property management, but, like, you know, they were, because they know our house, they were able to run our house better than we were, you know, because they're there so much. So we just started paying them a little bit more, and then they started dealing with the calls and dealing with everything. So now I don't think we've been to that house in like 6 months.
That's how you do it. So how much do you think you make off of that, and how much does this cost to manage?
So our first year, we started in like May or something. We pulled in about $87,000 in
gross.
Gross. That was gross revenue. After taxes, it came out to around like 50 and some change.
Off one property you paid 110.
Yeah, we haven't paid our mortgage since we bought the property. I mean, like, out of pocket.
Yeah.
We paid the mortgage.
Paid it
since
with
we bought
the
property.
rental money. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Because one booking pays the mortgage. You know what I mean? And our summers are usually like ridiculous. We can make anywhere from like $4,000 to $7,000 in a month, because, you know, people are paying for that. And, like, depending on the time of the year or the holiday, we can make even more. Like New Year's, our New Year's are always booked up, and that's $1,000 just for one night.
$1,000.
Yeah, and people because there's nowhere else to go. Like, our New Year's is booked up right now. It's February.
Wow.
New Year's for next year is already booked up. So, like, people pay because there's not a lot of I don't want to say there's not a lot of Airbnbs, but it's really hard to get one around that time.
Another thing is, we were one of the only Airbnbs in the area that rented out to teens who are like 8. Sometimes we consider pets too, which usually they never do. But a lot of times, people only rent out to people who are 25 and over.
Uh-huh.
But we extended it to 18. You have to be at least 18.
Did they jack your stuff up?
We have stories, but they pay. We make, how much do we have them pay?
Get a big deposit.
Yeah, and it's not refundable either.
It wasn't even a deposit. No. So depending on with Airbnb, if somebody breaks your stuff, we put in hundreds of claims, and Airbnb will just cut us a check.
Oh, really?
Much. Yeah.
I didn't know
So
that.
we had someone who came in and they like destroyed. It's on our Instagram stories. They completely destroyed the house. They only really caused about $300 worth of damage, but we charged them like almost $800, and they paid it. And these were, 18-year-olds. And we've probably had at least 20 groups of 18-year-olds, and they were the only ones that were a problem.
For the most part, the 18-year-olds, they were a lot, like the younger kids, they were a lot better to deal with than like the middle-aged women who are just so nitpicky.
Oh, yeah. Don't complain.
Yeah, the kids, they're like, they just want to make sure, they're not used to people saying, yes, you guys can actually come here and rent it out. So they just want to be on their P's and Q's most of the time. They want to make sure everything, they call you sir, ma'am, they're just like really timid. But then you will have those who are like what Quincy was saying, just they were literally throwing like chairs off of our balcony, just crazy drunk. But
we had we kind of give like a little speech before they move in. I mean, before they actually check in, we just tell them, hey guys, listen, I just want to remind you guys, we're very few owners in the neighborhood that allow, guests under 21. So all we ask is that you treat this property like it's yours, and then we'll be sure to leave you a 5-star review and give you a referral if you ever want to rent somewhere else in the Poconos or anywhere. And like if another homeowner wanted to rent to you, they could reach out to us, and we'll say that you guys were a pleasure having.
Yeah, I guess that would help. Yeah, I mean, everybody gets a bad rap to like 18-year-olds and mess everything up. So what's your worst story that's ever happened in real estate?
In real estate?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll just go to the Airbnb part where we had people throwing stuff off the... I never got so mad until I went through because we have cameras like around the outsides of the house. So like to see stuff that you went and paid for get thrown off the deck, they like there was just so much stuff that was just broken. We had a whole dual basketball court inside that was just completely mangled. They spilled beer all over the pool table. They were throwing
a beer can into the chandelier.
In the chandeliers, yeah. Like there was so much stuff that was done, and I just couldn't believe they broke chairs on the inside. Someone got slammed into a table, into the kitchen table, and broke it. Like it just. That's why I always tell people, like, if you're gonna open up an Airbnb, go Craigslist and OfferUp has to be your best friend. Don't go out and buy brand new furniture because people do the most when it's not their stuff.
So, but at the end of the day, Airbnb pretty much covered it, plus with the deposit.
Well, no,
so you don't even get screwed, basically. Too bad.
Yeah, no. Well, unless you're on HomeAway. If you're on HomeAway, if you don't have a security deposit, you're SOL.
Okay.
So like HomeAway,
and that deters a lot of guests, like upfront security deposits. You know, that's why we weren't really popular on HomeAway too much. It was mostly Airbnb.
That's the thing. Like, Airbnb is just a lot more popping than HomeAway anyway. But for a lot of people, when they have to book, a lot of the times if you have like a big like $500 to $1,000 security deposit, they have to all come up with that right now, and then it's a hassle getting it back to them. And I just didn't want to do that. So that was another reason why we were getting a lot of bookings, was because we didn't have a security deposit, which I felt like, why would we need a security deposit if we could just put in a claim through Airbnb and they'll cut you a check within like a week?
Yeah. Well, so I think that kind of goes back to our original thing we were talking about, is where people say stuff is scary, but your worst story was like it could bother you emotionally because they messing up your stuff, but you didn't go bankrupt or nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
here was the problem though with that one. We had a back-to-back booking that day, so when they checked out, there was no way that, because stuff had to get fixed, repaired. There was just way too much that had to get done. There was throw up everywhere. Like, we didn't have to cancel the booking. We just had to postpone it and just say, because these next people were staying for like 3 days. So like we had to cancel, their first day. And, we tried to give them like an extra day on the end, but at that time, like they all had to go to work that day. It was a Monday. So, that kind of happened.
Yeah, that sucks.
So we did lose money on that part.
Yeah, but overall it still works out. Okay. All right, so as we were talking about in the beginning, but we went on a tangent, which is cool. What was your first deal? And what was your first deal? How did it, first of all?
The Airbnb?
No, your very first real estate deal. Or was the Airbnb your first one?
Yeah.
That was your first one, the Airbnb?
Yeah, just jump right in.
You guys are brave, man.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my thing was we were already doing shoes and stuff. We were getting tired of the shoe business. And we were just like, listen, like, let's just jump into. We had a situation where our Etsy shops had gotten shut down because when we were trying to buy the property, we were at school at the time, and we wanted to use our student refund checks to close on the property. And apparently you can't do that because it's considered borrowed money. So what we were doing, we was like, we had like $6,000 worth of like refund checks. So we bought a bunch of shoes on our own. We bought our own shoes on our site so that it could kind of like wash the money.
Oh, okay.
I bought from him.
And then I bought from
Dang.
But Etsy picked up on that, and they considered it's called shilling, which basically means that, you're making yourself seem bigger than you are, which we were, and they shut our accounts down. And we were out of business for like 3 days, and we just pulled up on Etsy. They're right there in Brooklyn. Their corporate office is right there.
You went up there?
Yeah, we went up there.
Because we kept getting these automated responses to emails, and
they don't have phone numbers.
It was terrible. So yeah, we
pulled up on it. I told them, I said, listen, I need to speak to an administrator. Like I explained to them the situation, and then like we weren't leaving. Like they have security right there at the front desk. So you tell them, listen, I'll stay here till they come out. Like they're not leaving. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna have to explain to me. Like I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this automated response. They're saying like, sorry, you're not gonna be able to sell on Etsy anymore. Your shop's been shut down. Like they said, you're not getting this money. I'm like, yo, like we make way too much money for you to just send me an email and say that I'm not on here anymore. So when we went up there, the dude said, listen, he said, I'm gonna be honest with you. Not many people come up here. He said, but if you fill out, he had us fill out a form with our Etsy URL addresses and our name and explain what happened. He said, I don't know what happens, but when I submit these papers to the administrators, I never see you guys again. Is usually what he said. So he sent it to us. We filled it out and we gave it to him. Within 24 hours, both of our shops were back up and running, and he never saw us again.
Yo, man, he just on it, yo. You go out, who would even think to go up there? That's crazy.
Nah, that was crazy. So that experience, I was just like, I told Tyler, I'm like, yo, like, I didn't like the way that felt. Like, I felt like powerless.
Yeah, they
like,
took your money away. Like,
yeah,
now you can't do nothing.
I wanted to take them to court. I wanted to do, but I'm reading. It's like, no, like, this isn't something that you can take them to court for. Like, you're just SOL. So I was like, nah, like, I need to get into something where I have more control over my money or my livelihood. Because just like that, like, you're unemployed, and we weren't working at that point. It had been like 4 years with us not having a job. So for you to cut off and we had bills, we had all of this stuff at the time.
So that makes me think. So to use an FHA loan, how'd you income qualify?
So, all right. So the first year, we weren't used to paying taxes. We were very, very brand new to hold taxes and everything, and so we ended up getting an accountant, and we just raised all of our expenses and stuff because he explained it to us like, oh, you raise your expenses and then your income.
Yeah, they want you to write everything off because they think that's what everybody wants.
We wrote everything off. We only showed that we made like $20,000 combined.
So you pay no taxes, but
yeah. So when we went to go get a mortgage, the loan officer was like, listen, you guys only made like $20,000. I'm like, no. Listen, we just wrote everything off. I'm like, it says that we really pulled in like 65. Like I said, she was like, no, like we look at your bottom line and your bottom line says 20,000. So she was like, if you want a property in the Poconos, she said, I can approve you for up to 150,000, but y'all are going to have to bring in at least $65,000 net come this upcoming year. So what we did was we ended up expanding. That was our expansion year. We ended up because remember I told you we only had like 2 or 3 designs. We ended up like putting like I added about like 50 new prints to my shop. She added like 50 to her shop. She started doing shoes. We started selling on not only just Etsy but Etsy, eBay, Big Cartel, and Poshmark. So we opened up a bunch of new shops, and we ended up netting. I forgot how much we netted, but it was like I think it was like 80,000 or something or 90,000. That year, and then we ended up qualifying for the property that way.
So you were trying to buy a house for a while, and you just found out about that, the write-offs.
Yeah, I didn't know any of those things, and when we told her that, we had our refund checks coming in, she said, yeah, you can't even use that. So that's why we had to clean our money through our shoe business to to be able to use that money to qualify, because it came up on our bank statements as Etsy. So I was just like, hey, somebody just bought a lot of shoes. So that's kind of how that worked out for us.
So what's the future for you guys? What's your future goals? What are you going to be doing the next decade?
So I think that what we're going to start doing is we're definitely going to keep building our rental portfolios. We're going to keep, like, that's the other thing. I don't like being a landlord. So what I do is I take properties over subject to, and then I put buyers on lease options where they basically give me like a huge down payment and they make monthly payments to me for the next 30 years. Because that way, if a toilet breaks or if anything happens like that, I'm not responsible for it because you just bought this property through an installment sale. So, we're just going to keep doing it this way because it's a less risky form of investing because, like I said, I know a lot of people get upset about, getting into the whole, landlord role because it's like, oh, if this breaks, if that breaks, I have to pay for it. But this kind of cures that problem because now you're not a landlord. You're basically the bank because you're getting a deposit and you're getting a down payment and they're making monthly payments to you. So that's one thing that we're going to keep doing, and then we're going to keep going with the whole providing affordable housing and, like, group homes and stuff like that. So we're looking at a few properties now where, we could, take them over and try to, do group homes and stuff like that. But now, before we even get to, negotiating deals and stuff, I'm all in the zoning ordinances and stuff because there are areas out here who can allow for group homes without any type of variance, any type of special use permits and stuff like that. So that's what we'll be
Yeah, so you want to stay away from all that red tape, huh?
No. It's too expensive, and it doesn't
Time
really
consuming.
make. Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys do any other side stuff, or this is all you guys do right now full time?
Yeah, all we do is real estate full time.
Nice. So that must be nice. You guys can just do whatever you want all day, pretty much.
Right.
How much time do you spend working per day, probably? Like actually working?
Like real estate?
Anything.
Probably I'd probably say at least like 2-3 hours. It really depends. Like on average, I'll say maybe like an hour to 2-3 hours. But like if we're getting into something new, then it's probably like 10-12 hours. Like I get really like super obsessed when I don't know something, because I just want to go into stuff and be, not ignorant, and that's usually when we spend the most time doing stuff. Like, for example, like our Airbnb, we didn't just jump into Airbnb. We actually got jobs for the first time in like 4 years. I worked as security at the Great Wolf Lodge Resort, and Tyler worked at the Paradise Stream Resort, because at the time, all we knew how to do was make shoes. You know what I mean? So like we didn't know anything about hospitality. So I was like, yo, listen, like I don't like getting into new things, not knowing how to handle situations. So we got into the hospitality industry, and we worked there for about a year. And
you did that specifically to learn about the industry because you knew you were going to do Airbnb?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Both of you guys.
Yep.
So how does that conversation go? Hey, we're going to get jobs, even though we were working for ourselves, to learn about this.
She didn't want to do it. She did say, I don't want to have to work. I can just do research myself. I'm like, no. Like, listen, like we have to get in
Experience.
this. Yeah, if there's experience, like there's so much that we have to know about, because it's a different, hospitality is a totally different animal, and her whole argument was, well, customers are customers. I know how to deal with customers because I've done shoes. I'm like, yeah, but it's not the same as guests.
And
guests
I realized that quickly.
and customers. Yeah, and when I started working at the Great Wolf Lodge, it was completely eye-opening. Like I would sit there and I would just study my managers, study how they handle situations, study how they solved problems and stuff like that. And I just kind of absorbed all of it. Just kind of was a student to hospitality. Like, what happens when people are upset about their room, if their room is dirty, if they didn't get what they paid for, if there's something wrong, like how do my managers solve it? What do I have to say? Because I was put on the spot numerous times, because I worked overnight most of the time. So like, if guests are being too loud, I'm the one that has to knock on your door and say, hey, listen, you guys are being too loud. You guys got to calm that down. So that helped me when I ended up going on to Airbnb, because it was like, hey guys, listen, we're getting complaints, which we never got complaints with our neighbors and stuff, because I cut their grass and I shovel their driveways. So they don't bother us. But like, at least I still knew how to deal with the situation if it ever came about.
We really learned a huge thing in hospitality is overcorrecting, and just make.
What is overcorrecting?
Oh, like if there's issues that arise, don't just make it right. Like make it more than right, so
where they're happy.
Yeah,
where they're like, wow,
I wasn't expecting that.
We ordered pizza. That was the way we usually handle situations.
Set them pizza on top of fixing that shit.
Yeah,
we tell, because like if like we've had like our housekeepers are human, so there may be times where like the towels might not have been dried, or there wasn't enough soap, or a lot of people would be like, oh well, there's not enough blankets. We have all these people, like they didn't put a bunch of blankets in there. So like we'd be like, listen, we're gonna come down there with the blankets and stuff, and we'll actually order you guys a pizza and stuff. We see you guys got children and everything. We'll order a bunch of pizza. Pizza probably saved us at least 20
Seriously?
bad reviews, because like remember when we said the kid pooped in the diaper and left it? A guest found that. Like they checked in and they found that.
It was like under the cabinet.
Right. So like it was a lot of pizza that day. We ended up,
So you took them skills though and learned how to do it before you bought it. That's
we ended
incredible.
up we knew we were so qualified when we ended up getting an Airbnb. We hit our superhost status in 90 days as Airbnb, because we just knew how to deal with customers. We knew what they wanted, and we were also able to be proactive. Like I knew that towels, washcloths, pillows, and stuff, that seems to be the biggest issue. Like whenever I'm working my overnight shift, people complain there's not enough pillows, there's not enough sheets, there's not enough this. So the first thing we did when we opened up our Airbnb, buy as many pillows as you can, buy as many towels as you can, buy as many everything, toilet paper, everything. So we were able to solve problems before they were even problems.
Man, you are on it with the research and all that. I guess you make it sound easy, but you guys put a lot of work in to get to the point where you're at.
Right.
How are you guys on the same page so much that you're willing to get jobs to do that?
Well,
that's crazy. Like, because I feel like most people are like, I ain't doing that. You know what I mean? Like, that's a tough thing to, like.
You just got to be willing to really look at the big picture and take a sacrifice for, like, personally, you don't really want to do it, but you know it's the best thing to do.
But why? What motivates you to make that sacrifice? Like, what's your overarching why because, I mean, that all this stuff is out of the box. You're doing a lot of extra work to really do it properly. Mm-hmm. Like, that has to come from some motivation.
So, we listen to a lot of, Eric Thomas, Jim Rohn, Les Brown. We listen to a lot of motivational speakers, and we just kind of have a philosophy that we live on. And we understand that, like, failure stalks unprepared people. So, whenever you get into something and you don't know about it, it's not going to be long until your ignorance kind of creeps up into your business. So because of that, we just felt like, whatever we do, like, we have to be prepared for it, because I don't want to fail. I mean, I don't want to have to learn lessons, because, like, in this business, real estate, lessons are expensive. Like, like we said with the whole zoning thing, like, there were certain things that I should have done that I didn't know at the time, like with like parking and stuff like that they wanted me to do. And, it was a learning lesson, but it was, it cost a lot of money to learn that lesson. So, everything is always risky. So I figure, we just have to do things that, that we can minimize our risk, so we have to, make sure that we know what we're doing and find ways to be proactive and not reactive.
That just goes hand in hand, again, with why a lot of people say, real estate is a scam. And it's because you're not doing your research and everything. So,
what is the underlying thing? Like, why y'all working so hard to...
So I'll say my why that I feel like I'm rediscovering, because I just be on autopilot, right? Like, what's the next property? What's the next thing I'm going to do? But I feel like I got into real estate, one, because I don't want to work for anybody, and obviously collecting rent frees up your time. And to me, like, when I have a family and get all that stuff going on, which, Lord, I don't know what's going on with that. But eventually when I get all that put together, I think I was affected by my parents getting divorced, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not seeing my dad or my mom and all that stuff. And it was like, it really affected me a lot for some reason. I know most people's parents are divorced, but it affected me a lot. And I remember thinking, like, and actually, because my grandfather was a big impact on my life. Like, he would go to my soccer games, and he lived in Philadelphia, so, like, he's driving 30, 45 minutes to come. He would come to practices. He would take me out all the time. And, like, I was like, I want to be there for my kids whenever I need to be there for them, Like, I never want to have to ask my boss or whatever if I got to, take off to go to a recital or whatever they're interested in. I want to be present, And so, like, I always see real estate and entrepreneurship in general as an avenue of doing that, because I have basically freed my time. And so I am able to be in control of myself, number one, and when I have family, I can be involved. And, I'm not at work, and then you come home and you're tired, and it's bad for your relationship because, like, I'm trying to chill or whatever. Like, I just think it's, like, the ideal lifestyle that I want to live. And so that's what my motivation has always been, to, sacrifice. Because, saving money for down payments and not going out and not doing stuff is hard to do unless you have a good reason. So, I mean, that's my reason. So I wonder, like, in a deeper way, like, why do you do it? Because, you're sure it's great, you make money, blah, 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 but there's got to be, like, a deeper reasoning,
So the thing is, I just want to be an inspiration to my people. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people look up to me now because, you know, I'm that kid that graduated with a 1.7. You know what I mean? I was not voted most likely to succeed, obviously, in high school. And I guess what I want to do is not only be able to motivate people, but be able to be an example and enable people to know that, you know, when you're, you know, just because you're a man, you don't have to, or an African-American man, you don't have to necessarily be a football player. You don't necessarily have to be a rapper. There are other avenues for you to, you know, go and develop your gifts and be able to just, you know, be a beacon of hope for a lot of people who may not, you know, have the skills to be a rapper or may not have the skills to be an athlete. So, like, that's kind of how it was for me. That's why I do a lot of, you know, mentoring and being able to just show people that, you know, there's another way to make money. Like, you know, rich being wealthy and stuff like that, it's not just reserved for white people, you know what I mean? So that's just kind of how it was for me. I just want to be able to help people and be able to, you know, do things to where I just feel like I have a gift for communication, and, you know, it just makes me feel like I'm kind of called to do this. So that's just kind of how it was for me. Like, I always enjoyed teaching people. Like, I never looked at myself as a teacher. I talked to a lot of people, but I started realizing, like, you know, people are paying to talk to me, and, you know, I can help people out of their situations. Like, I'm going to these seminars and stuff like that, and there are no black people in these seminars. There are no 25, 26-year-olds in these seminars. So I'm going here, I'm extracting the information, and then going back to, you know, my people, like, yo, listen, this is how you do it. You know what I mean? And I've helped so many different people get their first property or find ways to make money, and it's rewarding. Like, you know, it's one thing to make money on your own, but it's another thing to help somebody make like $20,000 on a, you know what I mean? Like, it does something to your spirit, and it makes you more inclined to keep doing it and keep moving and keep helping people. So, like, I don't know, I've kind of became like obsessed with it. I've become obsessed with real estate, obsessed with just helping people and getting people to the next level. So, like, I feel like we don't have that much time. So, you know, keep, you know, doing what you have to do, buy a bunch of properties, and just become, you know, successful. Like, I know that there are a lot of problems out here in our community, and there's not many solutions. So if I can put myself in a position to, you know, help open up schools, help open up banks and hospitals and stuff like that for my people, and then teach someone else how to do it, it just seems like it's something, I don't know, like, me and Tyler always kind of like joke around, like, we kind of say that like we're living our ancestors' dreams. So, like, I don't know, I kind of always felt like I would be doing my ancestors a disservice if I didn't help my people and do, you know, all of the things that we're doing now.
Another thing I'll add is just to kind of piggyback off of that, is just to show our people that it's definitely possible and it's attainable. You know, we don't, like Quincy said, he wasn't good in school. I wasn't the best in school either. We don't come from rich families at all, like, not even close. So I don't, you know, it's nice to see real. And I think that that's what we like to, you know, show and portray, is just being real about it. Because there are a lot of people, you know, a lot of young black people that we do follow on Instagram and we watch, and they're just not real. Like, you know what I mean? They don't have, I mean, they'll show you this and show you that, but a lot of people are very showy. They don't like to, it seems like they're all about themselves and not really for uplifting others with them. And that's what Quincy and I really want to just put forth, is that, you know, anyone can do it, you know, and we're here to help you as well. And I'll also agree with you too, like, the family. I want to be able to be there for my kids. I'm pregnant now. We're having our first kid, so.
Congratulations. I'm not a normal human. I get to all the business stuff before I do the personal stuff. Everyone complains, but.
You know, it's fine. But yeah, like, I joined this community board with a lot of other pregnant mothers who are in the same pregnant stages, and they're all talking about, you know, like, what am I supposed, like, they go there for a lot of advice, and they're just like, you know, I'm working full time, my husband's working, I only get 12 weeks of maternity leave, and then I got to leave my baby. I'm just like, how can you, it's terrible. Like, the maternity laws and everything in the U.S., it's really bad. So I'm just like, I would never want to be in that position. I want to help other people get out of that position too, to be able to be there for your kids, you know, just like you said, with football games or soccer games or anything like that. So, yeah.
Do you think that helps your guys' relationship because you have that flexibility? Because I feel like a big problem with most relationships are working and money, right? Like,
yes, definitely.
You're working in 9 hours or whatever, and like when you have the baby, like then you got to be worried about going back to work or who's staying up with the kids, and that's just
making
tough.
sure the kids are good. I really wonder how people do it, like seriously, because that has to take a lot, and then
to work and take care of the house and
right.
take care of kids. That seems impossible.
The main reason for a divorce in the U.S. is money, financial issues. So.
Do you think that helps you guys, like, that flexibility, or are you around each other too much? Like, that could be an issue, too.
So, it definitely helps us. I mean, our relationship is founded on a lot of communication. Like, we talk about everything, and, real estate and everything. It really brings us together because it's not always just sunshine and rainbows with with our real estate. So, like, there are times where we, would lose money or something wouldn't go right, and, I would talk to her about it, and then, if she's not doing something or if there was something that she did that she could have improved on, I can sit and talk to her about it and, talk about how she can improve on it. And I feel like real estate and just going into just being in business, it just helped a lot because even with, like, her business, like, even though we both operated our own separate businesses, when she got too busy and I wasn't there, I had to, take off my business hat and put on hers. And, like, I'm working for her, So it kind of helped us in that aspect, just being able to just work together and, do things for a greater cause or, be able to talk to each other about stuff. So
do you think that's like a negative thing or a positive thing? Like, I feel like it go either way with, like, if you decide to do something, she might not be all on board with it, and then it ends up not turning out good, or you need her help or whatever. Like, is that, or actually, like, are you able to turn it off, right? Like, when you're, in a deal, like when you're busy, right? Are you able to separate the business from your relationship, or do you need to, or like how to?
So I think what it comes down is trust. Tyler knows that, whatever I get myself into, I'm going to wrap myself completely around it, and I'm going to become obsessed and just completely immersed in it. So when I get into something, she's never going to think like, oh, Quincy, don't do this because this is going to cost us a lot of money. She knows that whatever I touch, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to keep getting it. And, vice versa. Like, I know that whatever we get ourselves into, whether if she has an idea, we can sit down and talk about the pros and cons, and she'll know that my point of view or my opinion is coming from a good place. So, it definitely helps in that aspect.
But that's not to say that we don't have disagreements. I'm not going to make it seem like, if there's something that arises where I think it could be a potential problem or threat, I'll bring it up and we'll talk about it and we'll come to a solution. And then the same thing with Quincy. But we're not afraid to, like, and I think that's a good thing about the fact that we invest together, like, we're not afraid to step on each other's toes. You know what I mean? We're not afraid to tell it like it is. And, whereas if you had like a business partner, you kind of want to, be on your P's and Q's with the person. We're not like that. Like, I'll tell him like it is. He'll tell me like it is. And, if I have an issue with something, we'll talk about it. But it's never, we communicate a lot. That's the biggest thing. We communicate a lot. So it's never like, we get into arguments about it. We're very level-headed people. We communicated, we established that way early in our relationship. So
being in a relationship and being a business partner, you have the luxury of being blunt. Like, I could say things to her that, she knows that it's not to hurt her feelings, but she needs to hear it. Like, when we first started investing in real estate, she had the red bottoms, she had the Louis bags, the Gucci, and I just remember having this conversation with her, like, yo, like, you're not spending any more money on those. Like, we're not going to sit here and look all rich and extravagant and luxury when we don't have rich, extravagant, and luxury income.
I sold my stuff.
All of it.
Really?
Sold it all. If it costs more than $500.
All right, hold on. So You got to be really receptive to hearing that message, because I feel
hard,
like most people were like, nah.
It was hard, but actually I sold it for a good cause, though. We were trying to buy lots of furniture for our Airbnb. So a lot of that money went to that. So,
So you're just on the mission. So you're willing to do what it takes.
It's a blessing that
I feel like that's rare, because people, like you said, Instagram, everybody's trying to show, and that's more important.
I used to be like that, but it's not important to me anymore.
It's not. I guess what bothered me was like we had a pool table that was like $600, and she had a pair of red bottoms that were like $800, and I'm like, yo, we need to buy a pool table. And every time I open up this closet and I see these $800 shoes sitting on the floor not giving me money, like, I'd rather you just sell it. You know what I mean? So that and that's what we did. Sold it and bought the pool table. And it's like, you see, now people are booking the house. They play on the pool table. The pool table's paying.
It was worth it. I did. It was hard at first selling it all, but I like I said, you got to look at the big picture. You have to.
Do you have an issue with, like, if you have a personal disagreement, that it can bleed into the business, or a business disagreement that leads into your personal life? No. Like if you like some girl's picture on Instagram, I'm not saying that happened, but or something, and she gets mad about it, and then you got to talk about the Airbnb. You know, if she's like already mad at you or whatever, or you're mad at him, or vice versa. Is that it's a hard dynamic? Do you have to deal with that? Because I was in that girlfriend business relationship, and that was always like, you know, she's mad at me for this, and then now I got to talk to her about real estate stuff, and now it's going to be nuts.
When you have, well, first of all, like I said, communication is everything, trust is everything, but when you have a soul mission, like stuff like that doesn't matter. Like there were times where we were upset with each other, but we were still like, okay, we got to drive up to the Poconos and clean the house. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, we can be mad. You can go freaking do the bed over there. I'll go do the bed over here. But, like, we're still going to have to do this.
We're partners. Like,
right. Nothing is ever that serious.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. There's nothing there. There's
Y'all
really
giving me hope. Give me hope.
There's nothing ever that serious that the business would compromise. Because, like I said, and we say this to each other all the time, like, what our main goal is, it's bigger than us. It's way, way bigger than us. Like we're trying to set up, you know, generational wealth. We're trying to help other people have generational wealth. So there isn't a girl on Instagram that could change that. You know, there's not anything that could be able to change that, because it's a much bigger why. You know what I mean? So like I could never. There were times where I was just mad and I didn't even want to talk to her. But it's like, listen, we're still business partners. We're still doing this for, you know, ourselves, other people, and just, you know, our culture, our community. So like. There's never ever a scenario or a situation or a person that could really get in the middle of that.
I think that's awesome. You know, I'm jaded, so you're giving me hope. All right, but I think that's an amazing thing to leave it on. All right, so what's your guys' Instagrams?
My Instagram is Quincy D. Williams.
And mine is Tyler Brianna. Brianna is spelled with 2 N's with an H at the end.
All right. And Quincy, if you want to hit him up, you need to have that bread, because he's only going to help you out if you're serious, but it'll get you on track and hook you up.
Listen, people can reach out to me and ask, you know, regular, like if you're in a deal, like a lot of my stuff, like consultations are $500, and that's only because I have to come down from Scranton, you know what I mean, and sit down and talk to you, and I have to book, you know, hotels and stuff. So it's not me pocketing $500 off of you. You know, you guys know where I make my money. It's not off of stuff like this. But I need to be able to be sure and confident that you guys are gonna, you know, take the information and actually excel with it, you know. So I just don't want to come all the way down here and waste my time. I've done that numerous times. I've came down and had conversations with people.
And they playing.
And they play, yeah. They don't do what's necessary, and then I just feel like an idiot for spending the money and the time to come down here. You know what I mean? So, like I said, just if you're willing to make an investment in yourself and in your education, then I'll make an investment in you.
And I guess, is there anything else you guys want to say?
I think I'm all right.
Good.
Well, I want to make a message for people who are in a relationship where their significant other doesn't necessarily agree, or they don't necessarily want to take that leap of faith and you know, go and invest with you. you're gonna have to really, stick to the process. Don't get discouraged that, that your significant other doesn't want you to invest in real estate, whether it be because, you guys have responsibilities together, whether it be you guys pay the bills together, you guys have kids and stuff to take care of. At the end of the day, what it boils down to, it's their fear, you know what I mean? And you have to realize that those fears and those limitations don't belong to you. They belong to them. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to prove to your significant other that you're that person, that if anybody can get the job done, it's you. If anyone's going to buy that house, it's going to be you. So you have to be able to just have your own swag, your own, motivation to just keep going and keep, doing it. And then eventually your significant other will get the picture that, if anybody can get the job done, it's my man, it's my woman, and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to leave it up right on that. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Of course. Thank you.